Okay, everyone, just want to let you know that I am recording. This is Joe Armstrong and the Power Systems Virtual User Group webinar for June. So just want to welcome you all and hope everybody is healthy. Hope you're all able to enjoy some of the summer weather. It's certainly summer here in Rochester, Minnesota. Beautiful sunny day today. Today's topic, we're going to talk about roadmaps, both the AIX and the IBM roadmap. Now, this is kind of interesting because, you know, I see things from inside the IBM house, and so my view is probably a little bit different than most of you, all the customers and probably even the BPs. But I still suspect that from what I see that you get a lot of stuff on the cloud, AI, open source, OpenShift, Red Hat, all that stuff. And, you know, IBM doesn't push as much, or it doesn't seem like marketing is talking quite as much about AIX, IBM and Power Systems in general. And, you know, I can see where people might think, hey, you know, AIX is kind of done, Linux has taken over, IBM's milked it for all it's worth, and customers just aren't doing that anymore, and even Power Systems might be going away. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is not happening. AIX is alive and well, IBM is growing, and the Power Systems have a long history. They're working on the next version and the version after that even. So I wanted to bring a topic to tell you about that, to show you that we're doing AIX, we're doing IBM and you know, just to begin with, I'll even tell you on some of the Power Systems hardware, Power 10 is well on its way, and Power 11 development, you know, some of the research and what they're going to do and design has started on that already. So we have got a long history in the Power Systems still to go, and as I think we'll see today, we've got a long history in the operating systems, AIX and IBM that run on them. So we're going to start. We've got two presenters, both of them the offering managers for their respective operating systems that they cover. So I'm really excited to have them here. We're going to do AIX first. Simply because I know Allison, the IBM offering manager, was just on a call specific for IBM. So she's joining a little bit later. So we're going to start with AIX. So I'm going to introduce both of them now, and then we'll get going here. So Maria Ward is our AIX offering manager. She's, yeah, I'm just going to say, relatively new to the job. You know, we've had Petra Burr talk to us before, and she was offering manager before that. But Maria Ward is part of the IBM Cognitive Systems offering team, which is what we call for the offering team that does all the things. And she's responsible for driving the overall AIX software strategy to support and innovate on the needs of the AIX community and the clients while embracing the new industry technologies and the needs for the future. Maria works very closely with the development teams as well as other power hardware and software offering managers all around, you know, to build what's needed to make a total portfolio that's end-to-end for both the infrastructure and all your mission-critical workloads that you all do. Prior to her role as the offering manager for AIX, Maria was the Power Systems Accelerated Server Offering Manager, which would be the AC922, you know, that has the GPUs in it we use for the AI stuff. So I'm really happy to have Maria here. Also, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Allison as well, so that when we get to her, we can jump right into it. Allison is the offering manager, the worldwide offering manager for IBM and responsible for the strategy and direction of IBM. She also works with the development team. She sets strategic direction for she spends a lot of her time reviewing the market, the industry, talking to clients, to all of you about your requirements for during her career, Allison, with IBM, Allison's held a lot of positions, including the field systems engineer and instructor for customer technical education, a national support representative for IBM Canada, a worldwide technical marketing support representative for the development tools and compilers from the IBM, the Toronto laboratory. And I actually think Allison might be in Canada. So I want to welcome both Maria and Allison here. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm just going to check right here to see if Allison, here's Allison right now. Bang, okay. So Allison is just joining us now, made her a presenter. So with that, I want to let everybody know that the presentations that we're going to see today are both out on the Power Systems VUG wiki. I am recording here, as I said. When I'm done, I'll put the replay up there, probably, if not later today, hopefully tomorrow I can get the replay up. Now, on the WebEx here, there's both a chat and a Q&A. So here's the deal. If you've got questions, please type them in the Q&A. I'll be monitoring the Q&A for questions. That's what we'll look at to try and answer your questions. If you want to chat, you have some chat stuff to say, put it in the chat by all means. Actually, I think Maria might be asking some questions. Put your answers in the chat window for the questions. Please don't put the answers in the Q&A. Put your answers in the chat window, and then that kind of helps her further to get information from y'all. So with that, let me just check here. Allison, did we get you on now?
I'm here.
Oh, good. All right, so great. So we've got Allison on. I don't know how much of all that you caught, Allison, but we're going to start here with Maria and go about half the time, and then we'll switch over. Okay?
Perfect.
With that, Maria, take it away.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, Joe. I'm happy to be here, and as Joe said, I'm fairly new at this role. I think it's been probably about 3 months, 2 to 3 months since I took this role. Petra, who you probably know from before, moved on to sales, and she's now the worldwide offering leader for both AIX and IBMI. So I still work with her closely. I'm still working with her to carry forward some of the initiatives that she started with AIX, and just carrying on from there. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So I want to take you through an overall AIX strategy and business update. We'll go over some release and support roadmaps, recent updates to AIX, and then focus in on some of the AIX modernization strategies that Joe mentioned, the cloud, the cognitive, things like that. So, as Joe mentioned, though, I do want to get to know all of you better. So I will be asking some questions, just some general questions, and you can just enter those in the chat, and then I'll take a look at those later. So basically, the core focus for AIX strategy over the last 35 years has been to provide the capabilities to run mission-critical workloads. AIX has been known as the high-value platform for mission-critical businesses, because of our strengths in security, scalability, performance, RAS, the investment protection that we provide with our roadmap support and updates. And all that. So, but for the past four to 5 years, we've also been working on complementing these core strengths with other key initiatives. We've been working to bring open source technologies around AIX to the platform. This includes admin and automation tools, compilers, working on the deployment models and AI enablers. As part of my former role as AC 922 offering manager, I did see a lot of businesses shift or try to shift to more AI type workloads, and so I've brought that forward with me to this role as well, and I'm trying to figure out how do we enable AI for our clients. So the other thing is we're working on enabling AIX to be available in the cloud, either on-prem or in the public cloud. So these are some of the key initiatives that we're working on. And we do take feedback that we get from clients to deliver on these new features. So that's why we're asking for feedback. And I will share some feedback with you that we got recently from a survey that was done in the AIX community. So our goal overall really is to leverage the core strengths and strategic focus areas to provide a rock-solid foundation for application consolidation and flexibility for our clients, either on-prem or in the cloud. So the outstanding RAS capabilities of AIX, enable critical workloads such as Oracle and SAP to run non-disruptively with features such as live kernel update, enterprise pools, partition mobility, things like that. But we also want to enable the flexibility and additional capabilities to run side by side with other software and systems in the portfolio. So we have a lot of clients that run Oracle and a lot of clients that run SAP. So these are some of the things we're doing, to ensure we provide the right foundation for those clients and those workloads. Some of the open technologies that we are leveraging and making available through our open source toolbox include Ansible, Puppet, and Chef for automation. PowerVC is built on OpenShift, so we're using that, to allow more cloud orchestration with other technologies such as VMware as well. So there's a whole. I have a section on open source. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We're also enabling cloud management and flexible infrastructure choices. So we have lots of both on-prem now and off-prem public and private cloud options for AIX that I'll share more with you about. And then finally, enterprise AI, which is a topic that's dear to my heart. Like I mentioned, I realize that there's a lot of clients that are looking for AI. They get told, go do AI. They're not really sure what that means to them or how they go about it. So we've actually got several different options for enabling AI in an enterprise environment. The AIX workloads are a good workload for that because of the data and the enterprise databases that we capture. So I'll go into a little bit more of that later. The overall AIX market is still strong. We have 8 of 10 of the top banking companies running on AIX, 9 out of 10 top insurance companies, and banking, that includes companies like Wells Fargo, RBC, JPMC, insurance companies such as MetLife, State Farm, healthcare companies, UPMC, Pfizer, and Kaiser. And then also top retailers such as Dillard's, IKEA, Costco, Walgreens, CVS, things like that. So we still have very strong client base for mission critical workloads. We also have some data from IDC that I got recently that shows AIX and Unix is really still the leader in the market. It's increased over the last 10 years, and it's actually holding pretty steady in upper 50s. So you can see that's much higher than the competitors who are all hovering and sharing about 15% down at the bottom. So we have more about this in our AIX strategy paper that you can take a look at, download and take a look at as well. So I mentioned that we like to get community feedback. So, many of these regulated mission critical workloads depend on AIX as a platform of choice. So IT professionals rely on it for scalability with their environments. In order to better understand that, we work with a group called Help Systems. They do an annual community survey. This is actually their 4th survey. They did this, I think, late last year and provided the results early this year to us. So this really helps us better understand how the AIX is used within these complex mission critical businesses and environments. So as you can see from the survey, the clients are from around the world and covering pretty much all industries, from banking, technology, manufacturing, government, and a lot of these are large businesses with more than 1,000 employees. So if you, if you'd like to provide some information, I'd like to get to know who the community members are here. So if you can add, a message in the chat, just tell me what your role is, what industry are you from, where are you located, things like that. So again, as I said, Joe will save the output for me, and I'll take a look at it later. The other thing we got from the Help Systems Community Survey is some information specific to AIX, which is what we're looking for. 83% of the respondents said that AIX servers give a better return on investment than the other servers that they use. So this is really important. A lot of people worry about total cost of acquisition, total cost of ownership, but I think what we can demonstrate is that once you do have AIX running, that you're going to get better return on investment on that server than you would on other servers. AIX is critical across the board for businesses. As you can see in the upper right, All companies are reporting using AIX, up to 76 to 100% of their workloads running on AIX, for about 19%, 33% report running 51 to 75%. So it is a critical part of a lot of businesses. Some of the top IT concerns. Now, this is really important for us. We really want to understand what the concerns are and what we can do to help. So you can see there, cybersecurity is number one. HA and DR is the second on the list. Reduce IT spending, that's always a concern. Modernizing applications, which, that's a key part of what we're trying to do. And then growing AIX skills is important, and then, various other topics there. I'd say that most of these topics we are covering and then working towards trying to address the issues and make it better. And if you have feedback, go ahead and add that to the community chat as well, or the WebEx chat, I'm sorry, and I will take a look at those. So the AIX roadmap. Right now, we are around here, around 420. We just ended life for AIX 6.1. We do have some extended support offerings for people that still need to be on AIX 6.1 for some reason, but we are that is an extended support, offering. For AIX 7.1, we had the last TL back in, I think, 2017. So mostly now all the new content is in AIX 7.2. We released TL4 in October, and then TL5 will be coming out later this year. And, we'll continue to support that for a while. And then we do have an AIX Next planned. It's probably going to be called AIX 7.3, and it's probably going to be coming out sometime later next year. Hopefully we can align that, with Power 10, which also will be coming out next year. So we've got a lot of enhancements planned, and are looking forward to having that new release. We will probably at that time then announce end of marketing and end of service for AIX 7.1. So on the processor support matrix, as I mentioned, 6.1 is now in the extended support time frame. So if you have 6.1 on Power 7, there is a paid support offering through September. On Power 7 Plus, that will go through next year, and then on Power 8, we will enable extended support through 2022. I guess the important thing about this is that, all the new capabilities that we have are being put into the latest, the hardware capabilities are being put into the latest AIX releases. So if you want to get latest hardware updates or, leverage the hardware updates, you'll have to move up to the new AIX releases. Okay, so here are some updates on some things that we did last year, or last year and this year. GZIP, the GZIP accelerator is something new, and it allows existing applications to perform high-speed compression, reduce processor utilization, improve disk usage, and things like that. We've implemented some VMM lock scaling for faster memory initialization for workloads such as SAP, HANA, and then also the XIVE is the external interrupt virtualization engine, and that's really the enablement that we put in to provide a foundation for future interrupt hardware for new I/O technologies that are coming up. Some of the other new things are in AI for AIX at the bottom left there. I'll talk more about this later, but we have Python packages that are now supported, and we're enabling some scoring and inferencing on Power VM-based systems using some Watson machine learning and H2O software. We have AIX in many clouds now, so customers that have a cloud strategy, can utilize either public or private clouds for AIX and continue running their workloads. We're working on open source updates. AIX live updates, we had a lot of changes there. I have a separate slide on that, so I'll talk about that separately. We do have some IPsec improvements. We've enhanced the resiliency of that by eliminating the requirement to restart daemons when the new IP addresses are configured. So that was something that clients had been looking for. We did enable SMB 2.1 and are looking at updating to SMB, I think it's 3 later next year or possibly next year. So the stuff in the box down here on the right, these are some of the related products as part of the Power software portfolio. So we work closely with the other software products to provide an end-to-end platform for the mission critical workloads, for security, for VM Recovery Manager, which is HA, or the traditional Power HA. So these are some of the changes that have gone in recently. On the live update evolution, so you can see we started live update, introduced that in 7.2 TL0 with just iFixes, and we added PTFs and service packs. Then we did some more enhancements for simplification and scope. And then for TL4, we've actually added support for Kerberos, AutoFS. There is Veritas enablement. Veritas has to also make some changes on their end, but we have added the enablement. And overall, we've just improved the overall behavior and error handling for live update, since this is a critical function that our clients are using a lot now. We also certified live update on Oracle. So this is really key. You can go down, you can read go to the link there and read the experience document on what was done there, but basically this means that you can do a live update with Oracle running without any impact to your workloads. And Oracle did not have to make any changes to make this happen, so it was a big improvement. So the other thing is in security. We've had AIX Secure Boot and Trusted Install for a while. This verifies that the AIX OS images that were provided by IBM have not been tampered with. So we started implementing this in TL3 for Secure Boot and Trusted Install and Update. We initially just put in enablement code. In TL4, we now, beginning with this TL, the packages built with AIX are now signed and loaded into the system automatically. So when applying the updates, they're validated and validated with AIX Trusted Installation and Update policy. So but we are going to be enabling more of that in the future for other software packages as well. Another thing that we're doing, and this directly addresses some of the cybersecurity concerns that we saw in the Help Systems survey, but we are starting towards validating the Power 9 stack with a common criteria certification. So AIX is going to be the first component in the stack that's being certified. So what this means is the vendors can implement or make claims about their security attributes of the products, and this third-party laboratory will evaluate the products and determine if they actually meet those claims. So this is very important to ensure the robustness, of the system and the security that our customers are looking for. So AIX, we have a couple different editions of AIX that can be purchased. AIX Standard Edition, and then AIX Enterprise Edition that was announced later, that is built on AIX Standard Edition, but also offers some other value-added software that customers are looking for. So Enterprise Edition has been around, I think, since about 2015. We announced some changes in AIX Enterprise Edition 1.3 that was announced back in May. So some of the changes here are that we are removing the Big Fix Lifecycle product. This is a product that we divested to HCL, so we're no longer able to bundle it, but it will continue to be, supported on Power, and clients can work directly with HCL to continue to use Big Fix Lifecycle if they want to use it. But other than that, we've left. Oh, I'm sorry. We also added a valued solution, the VM Recovery Manager HA. So, you know, again, another part of the Help Systems survey was that clients were concerned about HA and DR. So we've added that into the bundle at no additional cost. So this simplifies their high availability. So this is, so we still have, you know, a very important stack here that clients can use and not have to worry about security, HA, things like that. The Enterprise Cloud Edition was added in 2018. So this is similar to the Enterprise Edition, but basically this was a way to rapidly deploy Power Cloud infrastructures with cost-effective software bundles. So we created the bundle, two different versions. One of them runs with AIX and one of them runs without AIX in case you either already have AIX or if you're running Linux or another operating system. So this includes Power SC, our security software, Power VC, VM Recovery Manager HA, Cloud Management Console, things like that, and also had BigFix. So one change that we made in May as well is that, of course, for the same reason, we have to remove BigFix lifecycle, but we still have you know, considerable other value-added products in the stack. Another change that we're making in the top, the deploy and manage private clouds with simplicity category is the cloud app management. This is one of the things that is now being delivered as a cloud pack. So we're not able to bundle it anymore, but if clients want to use that, they can continue to use that for their infrastructure monitoring and analysis. You know, they just need to download that through the cloud pack. And the simplifying and managing security and compliance, again, the BigFix lifecycle has been taken out. For high availability, we did change that from HA to DR. So now customers using the Cloud Edition can get the disaster recovery functionality as well. And other than that, the bundle has not changed. So, and again, that took effect in May. So some of the strategic areas that we are looking at that I mentioned before are enterprise AI, open source, and cloud. So our enterprise AI strategy is to enable clients to run AI projects by leveraging the available capacity and data stored on their enterprise databases. So a lot of clients, you know, have large systems that may have extra capacity, extra CPUs or memory, and so we're enabling clients to use that extra capacity to try out different AI type workloads, including open source machine learning packages, H2O, which is a third-party driverless AI bundle, and also some of the Watson Machine Learning Community Edition functionality. In the open source area, we have our AIX Open Source Toolbox, which now has over 300 open source packages available for download. This includes development tools, cloud and automation tools, AI packages, things like that, databases. Right now, the support for that is through the open source forum, but we are looking at extending that to an open source support offering later. This would be a premium offering that clients can purchase up front and you know, get formal support. In the cloud area, we have several different options now. The Power Systems Private Cloud is one of the newest offerings that I'll go over a little bit later. Power Virtual Server is our AIX and IBM capability in the IBM Cloud, infrastructure as a service offering. And then we have the Google Cloud Platform, and SkyTab and other MSPs, which enable businesses to run their AIX workloads in other public clouds, such as Azure. So when considering whether to use AI in your enterprise work environment or not, there are several things to consider. What we see is that many clients prefer to keep their AI projects local to where they're at, so to where the data is at, I should say, you know. And for starting out, a lot of clients are looking at doing this at a smaller scale, just piloting different projects, things like that, using the hardware that they already have in place. So as I mentioned, it's helpful to have the data close by where you want to perform your AI. A lot of the reasons for this are security compliance. That seems to be like the #1 reason that I've heard. Also, faster data movement and lower latency requirements. So instead of having to go through cloud, to a cloud through the network, having everything on-prem or close to the data is better. And then, integrating with existing applications that you already have running. So these are some of the things that we're looking at. Examples are, transactional and AI applications working together, providing base machine learning technologies for AIX, enabling scoring and inferencing, and then other potential areas that we've been asked about are such as, as I mentioned, the Watson machine learning frameworks, and then GPUs and accelerators on enterprise systems. So if you have any feedback on those areas, please, add it to the chat. We're looking at what is the best way to enable our enterprise AI. So, any feedback that you have, we will definitely be interested in hearing about. So, I've got several examples of how we are trying to enable AI and cognitive capabilities for the data that's residing on your enterprise systems. So on the left is an example of AI scoring and inferencing on an adjacent Linux LPAR, and on the right, it's an example where AIX inferencing, the AI inferencing and scoring is all located on the same AIX LPAR. So these are a few things that I actually worked with Petra on in my former role as the AC 922 offering manager, and Petra being the AIX offering manager at the time. So in both of these examples, your model training is done on the AC 922. If you're not familiar with the AC 922, that's the GPU accelerated server that is currently running in Summit and Sierra, the two supercomputers at the Department of Energy. So in these examples, and I'll go over a little bit more detail in the following slides, but basically, you can take your data running on your AIX enterprise database, move it to AC 922 or connect it, to AC 922 to do your training, and then deploy the trained model off either to a Linux LPAR on the left side there or back to the AIX LPAR to do your inferencing and scoring against. So this is the model that we're looking at. Again, because we know clients have a lot of data running in their databases, Oracle, DB2, things like that. So this is a key strategic area here. An example of this is more to the example on the left, but using Watson Machine Learning Community Edition on a Power VM-based Linux LPAR to host the model. So we have a sandbox available with some examples in GitHub. This is not a formal offering right now, but it's something that we have enabled for clients to go off and explore and see, how they can use Watson Machine Learning Community Edition products like or components, to enable AI. There's a couple links at the bottom. One's a tutorial, and then one is a link to GitHub examples. So the possible scenarios here are, once you've generated your model with your data using either the Power AC 922 or another Linux LPAR, you can deploy that model onto an adjacent Linux LPAR on the same power server. So if you have an E980 or an 880 or whatever you have, you can deploy it right to an adjacent Linux LPAR, and then run, export the REST APIs from the Linux LPAR to be consumed by the AIX LPAR on the same system. So in the example on the bottom, it's just showing an Oracle database running with AI model running on the Linux LPAR next to it for inferencing and scoring. I mentioned driverless AI, H2O. So H2O driverless AI is a framework for data scientists and non-data scientists to do automated training on an AC 922. This is an external company that we work with, but we provide their software on our systems. So in this is the example, again, you can create your model on an AC 922, by connecting to the data in your relational database running on AIX, and then deploy the model back to that database to do AI. And the models can be deployed using the Python scoring pipeline or the Mojo Java code in this case. So I just want to mention we do have an actual bundle offering that can be purchased to run H2O with AIX or IBM I in this case. So the bundle includes an AC922, the H2O driverless AI software, and a free complimentary H2O onboarding process to help get you started. So this is an interesting bundle, because H2O focuses more on text and numeric and transactional data. A lot of the current workloads running AI are more visual. You hear the examples of, the dog pictures and the cat pictures and, things like that. But this is actual AI against your text, numeric, and transactional data. So by using this bundle, you can learn how to deploy your data and do the, start getting insights from that data, from that transactional data. And another example of what we're doing in the AI space is with SAS. So SAS and IBM have been partners for over 40 years. With the recent introduction of SAS Viya last year, you can now augment your traditional AIX SAS environments, which have all the data that that you're using with the capabilities of the SAS Viya machine learning framework. So this is an example where SAS now supports multiple systems in the Power Platform, multiple types of systems. So in this example at the bottom, this is an E980 enterprise server running SAP HANA and SAS 9.4 on AIX. You can see in the light green there's some SAS Viya components running there as well, including the Viya worker node. The Viya worker node can also run on the AC922, which is the Linux-only based, GPU accelerated server. And in that case, co-locating SAS 9.4 with the newer SAS Viya code really enables growth and maximizes scaling of users, data, and workloads by taking advantage of those GPUs that are in the AC922. So that's a good solution for clients that are using SAS currently. So AIX and open source. I mentioned, we have an AIX Toolbox. This is the IBM hosted repository for strategic open source packages which are ported to AIX. Right now we have over 300 packages available. This includes development tools, server software and middleware, other common tools, cloud and automation tools, AI packages, things like that. We also include building blocks for installation and patching use cases, things to get you going, such as Yum, Ansible, Salt, Python, things like that. The packages are kept current by our development team. We have a dedicated team that focuses on these open source packages. They're updated at least annually, or whenever something comes up. If there's security fixes, they're updated more frequently, in a timely manner. And we do work directly with the communities to, upstream code when we need to. Right now, the support for the open source packages is through the customer forum. This is mainly a discussion forum where you can ask questions, and if you're having trouble with installation or things like that, configuration, you can get help through this forum. We are looking at the official TSS, which is our technology support team, open source support offering. So that's again something that clients are asking for. That was a key part of several of the surveys that we've done recently, and so we're working really hard to get that to make that available. The toolbox currently, these are some of the packages that are currently in the toolbox. These are things that were updated recently, newly ported or updated recently. So if you see anything missing I'd be interested in hearing about it. We want to make sure that we're capturing the right packages, the things that people are looking for, that people need for their environment. So please let us know if you see anything missing here. One more thing on AI. This kind of could have went in the other section, but since it's open source, I thought I'd mention it here instead. But we do support the Python machine learning packages on AIX. So the Python ML packages like NumPy, Pandas, SciPy, things like that can be installed on AIX using the pip command. These are not in the toolbox, but they can be downloaded from wherever wherever the normal repository is. And then you can use Jupyter notebooks to deploy or develop models and deploy them. So those are also using the pip command. So what we have in the toolbox are the tools to enable the installation to make these things work. So we have required libraries like OpenBlast, libLPack, BLAST, things like that are in the toolbox. And all these changes have been upstreamed and are available in the latest release. There's also a blog, I guess it's a blog or a white paper down there that you can read for more information on how to use Python on your AIX environment. Okay, so Ansible. So I'm sure everybody's heard about Ansible now. Ansible has been a big topic of discussion lately. So Ansible is a tool that delivers simple IT automation that ends repetitive tasks. So it enables clients to perform common AIX-specific tasks across multiple endpoints. The Red Hat Ansible Tower is the product that has the dashboard that shows the Ansible estate, and that runs on Linux. Red Hat Ansible Engine also runs on Linux, and that's where the playbooks will run. But what we're trying to enable is to extend the Ansible deployment model to include all the power systems. So we're working to get that enabled on for AIX, Linux, IBM I, ZOS, everything. So basically, you could have one Ansible tower and have multiple endpoints of different operating systems and manage everything from the same place. So IBM imagines Ansible and AIX to be able to work together through a collection of Ansible modules. Administrators will be able to perform tasks across multiple systems without needing to log into each instance directly. So this will really help. You don't have to have deep AIX skills to use it. These modules provide key building blocks that can be used in the playbooks to accomplish other key administrative workflows and tasks, so they can be rewritten or customized to your environments. We plan to make these modules available in Ansible Galaxy. This is open source hub or not hub, but open source repository for modules. Selected modules will actually get moved to Ansible Automation Hub. And what that means is they will become part of the Ansible Red Hat product, and they will be supported by Red Hat. So, support will go through Red Hat, and IBM will continue to support if there's problems, but will become part of the Ansible product. These modules will be delivered over time with the initial focus on AIX and BIOS patching and installation, things like that. So we are looking for feedback on what you're looking for in this, in Ansible. So if you have any feedback on how you plan to use it, please let me know. We did get some feedback recently on HMC. Customers want to be able to use Ansible with HMC, so that's something that we kind of bumped up the list of things that we're looking at. Okay.
So Maria, you got about 5 minutes or so left.
Okay. I'm almost done here. So the latest or the recent set of modules was updated to Galaxy just a week ago. So you can go, this is just showing what's out there. You can get NIM upgrades, gen install, make install P, things like that. So go to the link at the bottom for more information. We will be expanding this over time. Okay, cloud. Just got a few charts on cloud here just to let you know what different cloud options are. So this is our IBM Cloud. It's a Power Virtual Server, fancy name for IBM Cloud here. This is a self-provision, self-service type infrastructure as a service. So AIX clients can go off and request their resources, and they own everything from the OS up. So you can bring your own license if there's ISVs that support it, things like that. So this is currently available in Dallas, Washington, D.C., Frankfurt, and London. And then we're looking at deploying in Toronto. I'm not sure if that happened. It's a 2Q, so I'm not sure if that's happened already. But this is one way you can use AIX in the cloud currently. This is a brand new offering that just was released recently. This is Power Private Cloud with dynamic capacity. So basically what this is a low initial system price for either a Power E980 or E950. It reduces your total cost of acquisition, but it provides base and metered capacity for processor activations, memory activations for your AIX and IBM licenses. There's a different set of options, pay-per-use options that you can use there. And then, as mentioned before, we've got Google Cloud, we've got SkyTap, which enables AIX and other clouds such as Azure, things like that. The IBM Communities is now open, so for anyone that used to formerly use DeveloperWorks, everything has moved now to the IBM Communities platform. So you have to go in and join, and you can keep up to date with discussions, blogs, and events. And also the open source community forum that I mentioned for support has moved to this blog as well, to this platform as well. So if you were formerly using that, you'll have to go here and log in and create an account to join. This is just a little bit more on how to access that open source toolbox support. So, you download your packages from the toolbox. You go to the discussion forum for asking questions, requesting updates, and things like that. So let's see. Okay, almost the last slide. I do want to mention that we have an AIX Community Badge program. I believe maybe Joe might have sent out a link to this, but I just want to mention it. This is really to recognize community members who contribute regularly to the success and vitality of the community. So this is available to non-IBMers. We are looking at some things that we can do for IBMers as well, but this would be for non-IBMers. And there's different levels that you can earn. We would like to recognize, the badge earners. We've got several that have come in so far already since we started the program, but we'd like to be able to do something to start recognizing them. So please join if this is something that you're interested in, and let me know if you have any questions about that in the chat. And then the rest of these slides are just other resources. So I'll just kind of skip over these in the interest of time. I'm sure you know about Mr. Nigel Griffiths. I think he speaks here a lot. And that's all I have.
All right. Fantastic. Maria, there's probably a bunch of questions out there. Maybe you can take a look at those and answer them in the background while Allison's talking, if you can do that.
Yep, I'll do that.
All right. So with
and
that,
thanks everybody.
Wonderful. Let me make Allison and make you the presenter now.
Wonderful.
All right, so everybody, we're going to switch now from AIX. Thank you very much, Maria, to the IBM I. And I did a little introduction of Allison Butterill earlier, but Allison is the offering manager for IBM I. And she doesn't live here in Rochester, but I thought she did because every time I go on site, I see her there. So she probably thinks she lives all over the world with the traveling she does. So with that, Allison, you can go ahead and share your screen. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. It loaded the product. No problem. I will do that right now. So Joe's right. I am the IBM I offering manager. I've been the IBM I offering manager for many years. Every day it feels like even longer. I am Canadian, as Joe mentioned earlier. I am Canadian. However, I live in Austin, Texas. Although Joe is correct, up until March of this year, I felt like I lived all over the world. And we have in the IBM I team, we have a core set of people who spend a lot of time talking to clients in both virtual events like this as well as other events. So let me just, and you'll be able to have a look. So it's actually very interesting for me going second behind Maria because first of all, you hadn't seen any of my presentation content yet, so you didn't have any questions. So I sat and listened to Maria, and she actually covered some of the things, saying this is available for IBM I and AIX, which is great because it means I don't have to cover that same content. But let me just sort of walk you down a road a little bit about our strategy and roadmap. And my first chart, and I know that this is, for many of you, this will be old information, but for some of you, it sort of helps in putting it in perspective. IBM I originated as the AS400 back in 1988. It has grown through a lot of different evolutions, and it's been IBM I on Power since 2008. So in fact, it's been IBM I longer than it was any other name, and we have many people who call it many names. The key is we all know what we're talking about unless we're talking to someone who's never heard about it before. So you can call it whatever you would like. In the IBM I team, we call it IBM I, or actually just I. But the key is it actually is available. It's one of the 3 operating systems that run on the Power hardware. And I mention this because some of the solutions that Maria was talking about actually are running in AIX or in Linux side by side with business applications in IBM I. And so it's really a good thing to keep in mind that it is the same exact Power hardware. That hardware convergence started back around Power 5 and Power 6, but we didn't bring them all together under the same model numbers until Power 7. I just thought I'd mention that for a little bit of history, and it helps for those of you who are not as familiar with IBM I, it helps get those things in perspective. So let me talk a little bit about the IBM I business today. I know this is not the intent of the presentation, but I think it's really germane to the whole conversation. IBM I is present in, we do business in over 117 countries around the world. We support over 60 national languages. That's not programming languages, that's national languages. And we do it in both primary or secondary environments. So you can have a primary language of one type and a secondary in another. Our clients are probably the broadest range of clients of all of the different operating systems. We have clients that run their entire business with 5 employees, right up to some of the largest companies in the world that run with IBM I on the largest servers with thousands of users and thousands of employees. So wide range. And what's key to remember is it's exactly the same operating system, whether we're talking about these tiny little clients or the huge implementation. We don't have multiple versions. We don't have an entry IBM I versus a enterprise level. It's not what we have on IBM I. It's exactly the same, and it's all integrated, and we'll talk a bit about that. We cover all industries. Our history in IBM I is really in the manufacturing and distribution sectors. And that's because when the AS400 was first announced, IBM provided software. And if there are some of you who are as old as I am, you would remember the Mapix and DMAS software that we used to ship with AS400 back in 1988. Of course, IBM got out of the solution application program because we had so many vendors that did an excellent job and stayed current more easily on industry trends and regulations. And so manufacturing and distribution are still our largest segment, but what we're seeing is incredible growth in areas like banking, healthcare, and retail. And they continue to grow at an incredible rate. So I just thought I'd give you a little bit of background on the environment and on the business. I will tell you, IBM I accounts for a significant portion of the Power Systems software revenue that Power Systems recognizes. And as such, of course, it is a strategic direction, and we continue to contribute significantly to the overall development of the platform. I'm just mentioning that because some of you may have heard reports. Gartner loves to report on how IBM I, and in fact, I think it also does the same thing with AIX, how that's a declining business. The truth of the matter is, when you look at those reports, they're reporting on old versions, old numbers. They don't have access to the things we do, which is the number of clients we have and so on. We have a very active, growing business. Just mentioning that. So for the IBM I aficionados, you will know that this is the base architecture that was published way back when we came out with IBM I, then called OS 400, running on the hardware platform. And what was designed into the architecture was the integration of all of these base components that businesses wanted. They wanted to have DB2, some kind of a database, actually rolled into the operating system and not have to be managed separately, but true integration of the database with the operating system. And that's what AS 400 back then provided. They wanted a very secure, virus-resistant environment, and that's what object-based does. Object-based is based on the object-oriented concept for programming. Object-based says every object, everything on the system is considered an object. Every one of those objects has a header piece attached to it, and that controls the kinds of things that can happen to that object. Very simply, that means that if something is designated as a file, all it can be is a file. You can't double click on it and have it execute by accident. This is how we have managed to be truly virus resistant. Now, I talk about that. I don't ever publish that because if that would be like a throwdown for all the hackers in the world to try and get into the IBM I system. But we do have virus resistancy built into our operating system. We integrate about 40 different major components of things into IBM I. That's that integration block. So everything from DB2 to WebSphere application server to virtualization software to work management, printing capabilities, all of those are built into the operating system. And we manage them and have managed them since 1988 in a virtualized environment. Sort of we call it a subsystem, but it's like a sub-partition where you can manage work within a partition. So we have partitioning, and within that we have partitioning. We just call it subsystems. And that allows us to run multiple types of workloads on the same systems in the same environment, same CPU, prioritizing workload based on priorities and isolating some kinds of work from affecting others. And we've had that since 1988, before we actually called it virtualization. And at the bottom of that, the underpinning is this TIMI, the machine technology independent machine interface. And the TIMI is what allows us to swap out or have various different versions of the operating system above the TIMI with various different levels of hardware below the TIMI. And I know many clients, many operating systems today have a similar kind of interface that we do with the TIMI, but we were one of the originators of that type of design. So that's what we were working from. And from there, Steve, Will, and I spend a lot of time building out our IBM I strategy. Steve Will is the chief architect. Steve and I are joined at the hip. I look after getting input from clients. I deal with all of the different areas within IBM, make sure that IBM I is represented in all the different places like Cloud and Ansible, how we do AI integration, talking to our clients, our partners, and our ISVs. Steve takes the strategy that we co-develop and takes it back to his development team and figures out how to implement some of the things that we want to do with the platform. So as I said, we're joined at the hip. We overlap significantly, but we do have specific responsibilities. Now, our strategy is based around three major premises. The first is power solutions. What made the AS400 so popular in 1988 was the availability of business solutions. Clients like to have something that solves their business problem. And so we continue to develop our strategy based around solving business problems. So we want to enable clients to exploit the latest power technology. So we've moved from Power 7, Power 8, we're now at Power 9. We're certainly looking forward to what's going to happen in the future. And we also enable clients to actually transform how their customers, their users, their employees use the technology. And we've done a lot of work in enabling IBMI to work with mobile devices, Internet of Things, you know, the world of meters and monitors, to be able to work in a cognitive environment using AI. And Maria talked a little bit about the H2O bundles, but we've done a lot of work as well with things like Watson and providing interfaces from our native technologies like DB2, like RPG and SQL, directly into the Watson environment to be able to make use of things like the weather channel information that maybe a distributor or a logistics company or a trucking company needs to use in order to be able to figure out how long deliveries take, so on. Artificial intelligence is really big in the IBMI space as well. We have many industries looking at how to integrate artificial intelligence results from things like H2O and bringing those back into business applications that are running in I. So our goal is to really continue to enable solution developers, our ISV community, to be able to implement all of these with their business applications. And we do that through a variety of things, but one of the things we did, which I think strategically about 15 years ago was absolutely critical. In 2006, we entered into an agreement with the company then called Zend, which has now been acquired by multiple companies, and it's now Perforce. And we entered into an agreement to bring PHP to IBMI. Prior to that, IBMI had a reputation for being very closed and proprietary. Putting open source onto the platform natively, running on I in the operating system was critical. And we did that back in 2006, and we've never looked back. We currently have, and I'll talk a little more about it, but we currently have over 350 open source packages that you can download from our RPM site, put them onto IBMI, running in our PACE environment, and it allows our application vendors to then use that technology to do things like connecting with the Internet of Things or connecting with mobile devices. In terms of cloud, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but we are really working on various solutions for cloud and for service providers in looking at licensing arrangements. Again, this platform is 32 years old. The way we built it 32 years ago is not necessarily how we want to work with it in a cloud, and yet we have applications that were built 32 years ago, and we have to accommodate those in a cloud-like environment as well. So we're working hard at not only bringing older technology forward, but also allowing us to implement new features and functions with new technology. It's an interesting challenge, and the team is up for that challenge. We do the most incredible innovation with IBMI. And lastly, we're going to do all of that. We're going to integrate as much as we can, continue to integrate it into IBMI. We roll over technology. So for example, the WebSphere application server that now you're entitled to have as part of IBMI, WebSphere application server is at the latest level. It includes the Liberty profile, all of the things that make WAS one of the best application servers. So we've done a good job in evolving the technology to accommodate requirements and building it into the technology that we have. If you want to, you can go and download our strategy white paper. We have one as well for IBMI. I know Maria pointed you to the one for AIX, but we cover in the strategy white paper, we cover our strategy and direction for all the various componentry within IBMI. We also give you updates on all of those little boxes that I talked about. So we've evolved that base architecture. So for example, in DB2 we support row column access control, temporal support, OLAP. We continue to evolve the storage management capabilities. For security, you can have single sign-on. In Kerberos, we do authority collection to detect the privileges of various users. We continue to integrate things like support for mobile devices, new availability code, and as I mentioned, the 350 or more than 350 open source packages, which you can download to IBMI. Virtualization, certainly Power VM. We work under Power VM for true LPAR management, but we also have within that the virtualization capabilities we have with work management. And of course, we now support Power 9 and the various types of external storage that continue to come out. So we've done a ton of work in there. So for our roadmap, and if you've been with IBMI for a while, you'll know that we tend to be very flexible in our roadmap, or have been in the past. And now we are looking at a more regulated schedule, which is really important to know. And I don't have it on my chart, but when we introduced IBMI 7.1 in 2010, 7.1, we built in a new functionality that would allow us to deliver new function in the form of a technology refresh. So in 2010, we announced 7.1, and in the fall of that year, we delivered our first technology refresh to 7.1. This was a new way for us between releases to give you new functionality. Now, what kinds of new functionality are we talking about? Certainly, there are tweaking of little things that we give you, but we also deliver some major things. In Technology Refresh 4 for 7.1, we delivered live partition mobility. In Technology Refresh 7 for 7.2, we delivered free format RPG. These are not small things. This is not a fix. This is not a patch. This is brand new function that we roll into all of these different parts of IBMI. So we are currently sitting at IBMI 7.4. We announced that in April of last year. In the fall last year, we announced Technology Refresh 1, and we just on April the 14th this year announced Technology Refresh 2 and Technology Refresh 8 for 7.3. The development team, however, is long past 7.4. We're already heads down on the next release. Our internal goal is approximately every 3 years. We're on a more regimented schedule right now. So if you're thinking, when is that next release coming? iNext. Think approximately 3 years. Now, that's not a promise or a guarantee. It's just what we're using internally as a goal. But what's more important is that we're actually looking at the architecture of the release following that. So in our development team, the developers are coding heads down on iNext, but we're also beginning the architecture and design of the release following that. If you follow our three years rule, you'll know that 7.4, add 3 years, add 3 years to the one following that. Now I make that point, and this is published in our IBMI strategy white paper. It's important for you to know that because our executive team signs off on having us publish this, which means it is a publicly available statement of our future. The other thing that's always of interest and people ask me about is the support roadmap. And our support roadmap has a life cycle of approximately 10 to 11 years. So let's use, for example, 7.2. 7.2 was announced in April of 2014. It stayed under normal support, represented by that dark green bar, stayed under normal support until 2021. Next year in April, it goes to end of normal support. We announced that in October last year. So goes to end of normal support 2021. It is our intent to offer a 3-year extended support contract. There are no details about that yet. We typically publish the details about 6 months before the normal end of support. So look for that sometime around November, and you'll see details about an extended support option. And that's represented by that hashtag, the hash bar. So if you put that all together and say we announced in 2014, it's available till 2024 with the extended support, that's a lifespan of 10 years. So now we know where 7.4 was announced in 2019. Add 10 years to that, or perhaps look at the release following, which is 3 years from 2019, so 2 more years out, and add 10 years to that. Look at our release beyond that, IBM I Next Plus One. We're now sitting at around 2025-ish, no promise, but 2025-ish, and add 10 years to that. We're off the edge of my page, long roadmap forward. So just very quickly, and I'm not going to spend any time, you can go and read announcement letters. We certainly have done many different presentations about what we announced in April, but some really key things that I thought I'd just highlight to show you what we're looking at when we talk about a technology refresh. The first is in the area of high availability and disaster recovery. We certainly made enhancements to Power HA and BRMS, and we also changed a little bit, adjusted the focus of DB2 Mirror. DB2 Mirror, and I have another chart on it in a minute, but DB2 Mirror, when we brought it out, was originally targeted at our high-end clients. In April, we also announced options with internal storage, including NVMe, bringing the cost down and making it affordable for our smaller clients as well. We added new function to DB2 for I. We enhanced security in 7.3. These functions had already been included in 7.4 and we rolled them backward. We also increased productivity of all of our programmers. We've added more open source. And then of course we have a number of other things that we do. So these were the highlights only, but you can see the breadth of what we deliver in a technology refresh. It's not just, you know, a fix or a patch. So how do we get information? How do we develop this strategy? We do it in a couple of different ways, but the first one, and Maria talked about Help Systems and the survey that they run. They run a marketplace survey for IBM I. They've been doing that with us for the last 5 or 6 years. And you know, data is kind of interesting as it comes in. The first year that you see the data, it's interesting. The second year, you start to think it's more interesting. And by the third year, it's a trend. So I like to talk about this one. Steve, Will, and I both talk about this one quite a bit, the results of this, because this shows the top concerns from our IBM I client base. And in the top concerns, the first 4 bars are consistent year to year to year. I think anybody in IT would be crazy if they weren't concerned about security, if they weren't concerned about high availability and how to recover from a disaster. Certainly modernizing applications, making them look and feel and act like modern technology is really key as well. And modernizing has so many different interpretations. You can modernize infrastructure, but in this case specifically, they're looking at modernizing of the application code itself. And then the IBM I skills. And this has been interesting for us as well to try and address that. And so I'll talk a little bit more about each of those in a moment. The other place that we gather information, certainly from surveys and reports, but we also gather it directly from our client base. And for those of you who are not familiar with the way IBM I works, for many, many years, we have had advisory councils, many of them. We have an advisory council from Common Americas. We have an advisory council from Common Europe. So we get the small to middle-sized clients giving us feedback representing both America and Europe. We have our large user group, which is a membership independent organization of approximately 100 of our largest clients in the world. And they provide us with, again, a different set of requirements. We have an ISV advisory council. They provide good input on what they need to have to make their applications work well. We also interlock with ISV development teams, and we're hoping to do even more of that using our Montpellier and Rochester client experience centers. These, and actually we're really busy right now. I think it's because everybody's banking on virtual, not planning face-to-face. So it seems to be everybody wants these right now. It's very good for us, very busy though, in talking to lots of ISVs. Certainly down the right-hand side, we have the, this is a group within our China team. So in IBM I, the majority of our software is developed in Rochester. We do, however, have a Chinese development team out of Beijing, China. And they tell Steve and I that this says the IBM I tour. It could be saying anything. We hope that's what they're saying. And then we have customer briefings and so on. And as I said, this is where we collect a lot of our input. In fact, China Merchants Bank is one of our large user group members, and China Merchants Bank gave us some feedback a while ago that they had to improve their high availability solutions. They needed continuous availability. And it was because of China Merchants Bank being a member of our LUG and working with us that we actually have come out with this technology called DB2 Mirror for I. DB2 Mirror is exactly as it says. It mirrors the database between two systems. Now there's lots of other technology and we have lots of detailed presentations on how it works, but I thought I would give you just a quick overview, and that is that this is operating system synchronous replication. It happens immediately. So whatever you're doing on one system is immediately reflected on the other. You can determine what gets replicated. So you can choose to have some additional components other than the database. You can select pieces of the database to be reflected. It gives you continuous availability because it's continuously updating. Because of that, it means that the two machines need to be in the same data center. We can't have them far apart, and that's based on requirement of that RoCE, reduced converged Ethernet, reduced instruction set over converged in Ethernet. And this is a high-speed link, and there's a limit, a distance limit on it. So I just thought I'd mention DB2 Mirror. As I said, there's lots more information about it. You can go up to our support sites and pull down presentations. You can come to our development team and we're happy to walk you through how DB2 Mirror works. You do require Power 8 or later, and you have to be at IBM I 7.4. It doesn't work back on 7.3. Because of the pervasiveness of this in the operating system, we put it into 7.4 as we were developing it. I mentioned that we have lots of choices of languages and so on. So we have traditional languages. Perhaps some of you are using those already. Languages and tools. We have open source. We have tools like the Rational suite of tools, Rational Developer for I. We've been using that for a long time, and we are seeing more and more uptake on that tool as it gets more and more sophisticated. And of course, open frameworks that help programmers get more productive as well. Being able to slot their own code into a framework makes it faster to develop an application. But I thought I'd spend a couple seconds and just talk quickly about modern application structure for IBM I applications. And the reason I thought I'd break this down is because it shows very clearly how we're working from IBM I perspective, from our development team, on integration of all these technologies. And it's truly based on the structure of the applications. So we have our traditional business applications in the lower right corner, accessing our database, which we continue to enhance and update, providing new function right in the database that allows you to create modern applications. The front end has a lot of different kinds of technology, like open source languages. These open source languages are the ones that paint the beautiful pictures on screens. They're the ones that support mobile devices, but that's also the way we typically get to web services using REST APIs, and we can access things like IBM Watson, for example, or other technologies that are in the cloud. It's really important to understand that this structure allows us to tailor business applications to easily take advantage of that modern technology. When we did our 30th anniversary celebration, we went out and collected a number of innovative stories of clients using IBM I in ways we had never expected. You know, our development team, I always tell them they're the most innovative people I know. They create the most incredible solutions that our clients need and that our clients want. But then we went out and talked to clients, and I was absolutely blown away by the innovation that our clients show. So everything from driving robots in a warehouse I'll come back to that. To the top right-hand corner where we have companies that have been doing hosting services for more than 20 years. Since long before we called it a cloud, they've been doing cloud-like support. Bottom left-hand corner where we're able to do things like connect with banking services to do credit checking and lookup, to take somebody's credit information from a bank application and decide what investment options are best. Or on the bottom right, integrating geo-positioning codes into an application so that I can plan out the best route for a trucking company. I mean, these are incredible technologies. Just as a comment on the robotics, we have heard from two of the customers from whom we originally took stories, and those two customers have come back to us and said, you know what's amazing about robotics in the time of COVID is that robots don't get sick. So there's no social distancing going on in the warehousing, and they're able to actually fulfill orders and get goods to the loading dock 10 times faster. So they're fulfilling 10 times the number of orders every day. This is just unbelievable. All of our stories are up on our webpage. You can link to them. I put them up here because I thought I'd just show you some of the kinds of companies from all over the world, everywhere that we do business. They were submitting different kinds of stories. I think we have approximately 75 out there right now, but this is the link, or you can get there directly from our webpage. This is another one, the Kansas City Turnpike Authority. They actually implemented Power HA because as they have cars driving through the automated tracking system, they did not want to lose revenue by having the system down, and they couldn't be tracking when cars were getting on and off. And so I just thought I'd mention that one because it's a pretty cool story for using Power HA and increasing their revenue opportunity. We also have this one, TJ Morris. TJ Morris is a very large customer in the UK. They are actually a home bargain or bargain shopping kind of retailer in the UK. They have more than 500 stores. For about 20 years, they have been running on an AS400, and I use that term correctly in that instance. They purchased 20 years ago equipment that they put in every store, and it was running with some intervention. They were doing some standard maintenance on the machines, but it continued to run. And it wasn't until last year when we were able to show them the performance improvement that they would get by moving to a more current operating system and a more current hardware platform. They had been just bumping their heads in some of their big stores on the size of the machine and the performance capability. So last fall, they invested again with IBM I running on Power and actually purchased about 400 and some systems from IBM and put them back into all their stores. An incredible story of the reliability, availability, resiliency of the hardware. So kind of what I've talked about is the ability to take your native applications, and whether you get applications from a specific vendor, and this is the number of the application vendors, we have about 4,000 solutions that run on IBM I. So if your favorite one is not on my chart, I just couldn't fit 4,000 icons on there. But take those native solutions that are running in RPG, COBOL, accessing our integrated database, perhaps using some Apache if necessary, and running on a Power server. And we're seeing lots and lots of clients that are modernizing their application. So for example, this company, Radial, is actually a multinational fulfillment company, and it's a fulfillment company. They do the servicing of online retailers such as Godiva Chocolates, GameStop, the Discount Shoe Warehouse, Dick's Sporting Goods, Ralph Lauren, Estee Lauder, and they own 13 million square feet of warehouse space across 26 distribution centers. You can just imagine the volume that they have to process in the United States when it hits Black Friday, or on the Cyber Monday when everybody's finishing up their shopping that they didn't get done on Black Friday. RAID dial has to handle volumes and volumes of transactions. And as a result, they've upgraded their application processing, they've upgraded their systems to Power 9, and they are able to continue to make their applications perform in the way they want. So upgrading infrastructure is a modernization play in effect. You can also expand with open source, and we've talked about all the many packages and all the many options you have with open source. So if you haven't been able to solve a business problem using some of the native solutions, you could be solving your business problem perhaps using some of the open source options. And goodness, there's thousands and thousands of open source applications, both the ones that we have here as well as real business applications like Sugar CRM or Odoo, which is an ERP package, and so on. Those open source packages run on the environments that you can download from the RPM site. They could use MariaDB. We provide that. They run in the PACE environment, still within the reach of IBM I. A good example of that is Brainstaff Consultants out of Japan. This is a company that built the front end for scheduling and communication software that colleges and universities use in Japan. Students don't get online all the time on their computers. They actually use a series of mobile devices, and they use different kinds of technologies on their mobile devices. So this company, Brainstaff Consultants, was able to build a chatbot into their application, their scheduling and communication application running on IBM I, and it answers routine questions from staff and students. So it allows the students to communicate to the college in the way they want. It's a really cool application, and it prevents them from having to waste time, prevents their staff from having to waste time answering basic questions. The chatbot's able to do it using artificial intelligence. If that doesn't work, you could spin up a Linux or an AIX solution. And you could put that on the same Power Systems hardware. So Linux or AIX application could connect with your solutions that are running your business. For example, Oris in Belgium, this is a company that books real estate for vacationers. And what they wanted to do was make sure that they could schedule all of the different it's kind of like an Airbnb, so all the different vacation properties need to be scheduled according to people who are booking them. And they couldn't find the right booking software that they liked on IBM I. They actually found it in a Linux application. So they spun up a Linux application to do all of the online booking that they have, to do the scheduling, but all of the billing and all of the AR, AP, all of that is done by IBM I, by the business application they had running. They just front-ended it with a slightly different solution running in Linux on Power. You can also expand your application to support IBM Watson or Bluemix. Again, another way to easily start integrating some of that technology. Or perhaps with an actual standalone machine where you're going to build your cognitive engine, and then you're going to move that engine up to IBM I and have it run in I on Power Server. So you can build it on the AC922, as Maria was talking about before, using something like H2O. And this is a good example of a bank that's done this already, located in Paraguay. Vision Banco built an application engine that analyzes the data, and it takes that data and it then decides and helps direct where people are going to invest or what kinds of investment opportunities are best for them. And the last thing I wanted to talk about very quickly was the cloud. All of that is available in the IBM Cloud. And we have a number of stories in our database that talk about those cloud solutions. But I think what's really interesting as well is in our Power Systems virtual server, IBM I is in there. You can go into the virtual server, you can get all the information that you need about getting compute resources from our IBM Power Systems virtual server. The very last thing I want to talk about is our Fresh Faces campaign. Remember, one of the targets we've talked about so far is modernizing of applications, providing availability and resiliency. We continue to talk about security, but the last piece in that column was IBM skills. So I thought I'd spend a couple of moments and just quickly talk about this. And that is, we have a Fresh Faces campaign. This has been going on for a couple of years, and twice a year we publish our latest class of, for example, 2020. And the class of 2020 has a number of stories of young people coming into IBM shops being productive immediately because they know open source. One of the things we know is Python is the most widely taught language in the world. If you want to make your platform attractive to young people, you have to deliver what they know. Python has been on I for 5 years. These young people come into an IBM shop, they're able to be productive, they understand, and over time, very quickly actually, they learn traditional RPG. They learn traditional COBOL. But the key is they come in with enthusiasm and a broad set of skills in a modern world, and they're able to connect with programmers who have domain knowledge. They understand the business and the older, the more traditional forms of programming. And when you combine those two together, you get incredible results. And that's what we've seen as we've talked about all of our client stories. Bringing these young people in and teaching them about IBM, they love it. The stories are all in our Fresh Faces campaigns. You can go out to our website, Google Fresh Faces, and you would get connected with some of these young people and their stories. So I'm going to wrap up by simply saying, what is your next innovation with IBM? We challenge all of you, whether you're doing tax interfacing, as we see from FormaServe working with the UK government, Her Majesty's Tax and Revenue Service, whether you're doing online and automated kinds of packaging, in this case we've done with American Packaging, whether you're doing logistics and trucking companies, or whether you're supporting industries that work around the world and have implemented chatbots with Watson. All of these stories come from our client stories page. They're full of inspiration, and I would encourage you to go and read them and sort of plan what your next move will be with IBM. What are you going to do next? And then let us know about it. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Joe.
All right. Well, thank you, Allison. That was great. And, you know, as starting my career in Rochester, I've been around I a long time. When I started my career doing this job, it was really AIX focused. So I really have a foot in each side. And now we support both I and AIX in this job. So just to hear about both of those is really nice, and I really appreciate Allison, you and Maria both coming in and talking about this to the Power Systems Bug community. So we're just 4 minutes over, so we did pretty good. I want to thank everybody for joining. Wish you all health and ability to enjoy some summer weather, hopefully not in a big crowd. And also both to Maria and to Allison, that you guys enjoy some of that and some health in Texas as well. With that, we'll end the webinar, and I'll send out notes about next month. I don't have the topic all lined up and finalized yet, so I'll send out notes about next month's topic later, maybe in a week or so. And happy 4th of July to everyone. So long.